When we understand who Jesus is, that we understand what he claims. And what he claims is that he is all these things, the I ams, and that helps us authenticate Jesus, or him to authenticate him being worthy of our lives and of our service. So we're going to be in that series for the next little while, and we hope that there are more I ams of Jesus, but we're just going to look at 7 leading up to the period where we get to the next chunk of understanding what living authentically might be about. But Jesus was in the impossible business, or the making things possible out of the impossible. And that's one of our values, that we believe that everyone's welcome, nobody's perfect, and anything is possible. We don't believe that because of our collective intelligence or our collective gifts or our collective life experience. We believe that third value, anything's possible, because of the God we serve. And it's really important that we never forget that. Jesus, the Son of God, was in the business of making the impossible possible. He looked at a crowd one day and said, with people, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. And today we're going to be in John 6, the Gospel of John. We've been looking at 1 John and the whole understanding of Jesus. But then we're going to look at the Gospel of John, chapter 6. And in this story I'm about to tell you, the disciples, those who Jesus had chosen, the 12, are going to participate in an event or a miracle of the feeding of thousands of people on the side of a hill, where the Bible mentions there were 5,000 men at least gathered. So let's assume there are many more thousands beside. Here's what happened. Andrew, one of the disciples of Jesus, gathered a small crowd, gathered from a boy, basically a small amount of food, of fish and loaves, from a boy, and would then bring them to Jesus, and Jesus would take that little piece of food, and with that little piece of food, he would feed those many thousands of people. He made that which was impossible possible. Scholars have said that there were 2 miracles that day. The first miracle second miracle was that Jesus fed 5,000 with some loaves and fishes. The first miracle was that the kid hadn't eaten his lunch already. Now, I don't know about you, but I used to eat my lunch going to school and try to survive the rest of the day. But that's just me. The disciples were asked to pass around this food, and miraculously something happened that kept the masses of people fed. So the impossible appeared to become more impossible, but another miracle happened after they were all fed, that there were leftovers. I grew up in a household with 3 boys. I'm the middle, the one who's mainly in therapy about that, but I'm the middle child. I have an older brother and a younger brother, and let me assure you, at the dinner tables that I grew up at, there were no leftovers. In fact, we used to eat like we were in prison.
there was arms around food. That's the way that we ate in those days. There were no leftovers. But the miracle, we know the story of John chapter 6, is that there were 12 baskets of leftovers. So these thousands of people who were hungry were being fed by the Son of God, the Messiah, and there's still more to come. And so it's following that particular scene that we come to the first I am of Jesus. And it's this. Jesus says to the crowd, I am the bread of life. Jesus took something that was contextually real for them, and he magnified that truth to allow it to become accessible. And that's what we're going to deal with for a few minutes today. I am the bread of life. So Jesus is not limiting himself to physical hunger. He's expanding that and talking about spiritual hunger. I'm sure you've heard the saying, you are what you eat. Have you heard that saying? No? You've heard that saying? Good. It's a proverbial phrase in our culture that helps us consider the foods that we are considering. You know, you are what you eat. Based on that, I might well be a barmet or a Neenish tart. I'm not too sure which one. If you literally are what you eat. Well, of course, it doesn't mean you literally are what you eat. It suggests that if you, it doesn't suggest that if you eat a hamburger, then you'll slowly turn into a hamburger. Rather, it suggests that your physical reality or health is directly connected to the foods that you will eat regularly. And so there are consequences both ways of either good health or bad health. And the Bible makes it clear that we are not only defined by our physical health or our physical bodies. Our physical health often is a barometer of our dignity and significance in this world, but there is also a huge element of us that is our soul, that is our spiritual life, that gets either no nourishment or is malnourished or is fed in ways that makes it unhealthy. And that's the point of I am the bread of life. So let's consider this just for a few moments' time, because our spiritual diet is a great indicator of who we are becoming. Our spiritual diet is a great indicator of who we are becoming. We will be in greater spiritual health if we eat good spiritual food. So the people come back after they've been fed, and there's 12 baskets over and they've eaten their full. We know that Jesus then declared, I am the bread of life. The people come back to Jesus, and the thing that they want most from Jesus is the thing that he will provide, but he will not provide it in the way they want it. What they want is what we all want at times. They want more. So they've been fed, there's leftovers, there's nothing more to eat in terms of their own physical needs, but they want more. And we see that in the scriptures, we'll get back to that, that Jesus then contrasts that which is perishable to what is imperishable. Now, I don't know what your habits are, but Sharon and I do once a week the big shop. Who loves the big shop? Some of you people are micro shoppers where you shop every day. Other people push things online and do all that sort of stuff, and it gets delivered and all that. But we still are into the big shop, right? And at the big shop, we shop for things that are perishable and things that are imperishable. Now, perishable food, you don't need me to tell you, are things that won't last that long. They're not going to last that long, not because I just eat them all, but they're things that just don't last long. They have a use-by date. One of the great gifts of modern life is that on the packaging it tells you when you can eat stuff and when you shouldn't eat stuff. Most of us grew up in an atmosphere where we got very good at smelling milk. And we would say to each other, have a smell of that. Do you think that's safe to... And you go, well, oh, yep, that's right. You get another couple of days out of that. But now we just look at packaging, used by or best before or whatever it might be. But we all know when we do the shop, big shop, little shop, that we have to buy a mixture of imperishable foods and perishable foods. Perishable foods, you know, things like fresh fruit and vegetables and bread and milk and yogurt and whatever it might be, are foods that will spoil or perish eventually. They have a life, but their life comes to an end and they are no longer safe or worthy of eating. Imperishable foods, on the other hand, are things that will last. You've probably got some of these things in your cupboard from the war, the second one. But there are things in your cupboard that have been there for forever, and you think, I really want to eat that this century. There's some things in there. They are imperishable foods. So when a disaster comes or a pandemic happens, people rush out to the store in search of imperishable food because they think they want to ensure themselves of a stockpile of provision that outlasts the next week or the next month or even that particular season. There is security and stability and longevity in imperishable foods. So back to John 6. John 6, Jesus takes this concept of perishable and imperishable and he does something remarkable with it. He draws parallels from the perishable and imperishable kind of thing and applies it to spiritual health. He sets up this entire conversation, as I said, immediately after he has physically fed, through miraculous means, 5,000 plus people with perishable food, the bread of life. But the people come back and they want more. Well, here's what happens next. In verse 25 of chapter 6, it says, when they found Jesus, he was on the other side of the lake, and they asked him, Rabbi, when did you get here? And Jesus answered, I tell you the truth, you are looking for me not because you saw miraculous signs, maybe they've just seen this miraculous sign, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. So Jesus confronts them because they are not seeking him for who he is to them. Here they are seeking him for what he has given them and what potentially he will give to them again. We've got to watch in our spiritual life that we don't simply become consumers rather than contributors. It's so easy in our world just to become a consumer of everything, and it includes our spiritual life. The church of Jesus Christ is set up as an organism so that all can contribute to that body. And we are all the less and impoverished for those who decide to simply only consume and not contribute. Now, I know that can be down to the season of life you're in. I know that can be the circumstances of life you're in. But contributing does something to our soul that consuming doesn't. Rabbi, when did you come here? In other words, you should be with us. Jesus said, well, I say to you, you're not seeking me because you saw these signs or miracles, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. There is something about the perishable that becomes weighted in the sense of it being imperishable. In other words, it's the only thing we pursue. Jesus is telling them that lasting satisfaction, spiritual hunger, is not found by something he gives to you, but is found in who he is. So the miracle for physical sustenance was to move them to consider spiritual sustenance. Now, of course, day to day they still have to eat. The miracle that Jesus performed actually diagnosed the problem of their notion of spiritual provision. Let's look what happened next. Jesus then says to them in the next verse, so do not work for food that spoils, that's perishable, but for food that endures to eternal life, the imperishable, which the Son of Man will give you. For on him God the Father has placed his seal of approval. So Jesus is telling something about the human condition, something in the condition about you and me, where we get what we need and what we want confused. And we hear that beautiful song that Cheryl and Brenton blessed us with, you give me everything I need. And then we go, well, is that true? I think I need this and I need that and I need a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of the other that might get us further than I think God can take me. I wonder what that is for you. Jesus is saying that the human condition, to look for what that will sustain us beyond the perishable, is called life. In the New Testament, you probably know that in Greek, the Greek language, which I learnt by cards for 4 years, Koine Greek, because the New Testament's written in Koine Greek, which is a kind of the common Greek of the day. And in Greek, they have 3 different words for the word life. They have 4 or 5 main words for the word love. You know about that, eros and agape and philos and all that sort of stuff. Well, for life, they have 3 main words in the New Testament. Bios, which is the word for life, for physical life, if you like, the life that we have, the life that we breathe in and out. We also have the word shuch, which is the word life or breath. But the last one is the most common word, and that is the word zoe. And that zoe is a word that talks about not quantity of life or just physical life. It talks about the quality of life. And so John uses this word zoe 36 times, more than any of the other Gospels combined. He uses 11 times in this one chapter of John chapter 6. And when he's talking about life, he's talking about this zoe life, this quality of life. Not just existing, but there's abundance of life, there's fullness of life. I've come, said Jesus, to give you life and to give it fully to you. So when Jesus uses that word, zoe, he's making the distinction between the perishable and the imperishable. He's telling them that life, zoe, quality of life, is not found in simply things that are perishable, but actually in things that are imperishable. And if you back the house on things that are perishable, you'll always be hungry. Because there'll always be something else that you want, that you think you need, you see. Since you've been born again, says the Apostle Peter, not of perishable seed, but of imperishable, through the living and abiding Word of God. Jesus says, I am the bread of life. I'm not just here to meet physical needs, I'm here to meet your deepest need, and that is to give you zoe, is to give you quality of life. I am the bread of life. So here's the question for you and for me, and I've got to keep asking this question. What is zoe for you? What is quality of life for you? Where do you find satisfaction or meaning or purpose or bread or zoe? Where do you find quality of life? What is the thing that you are endlessly working for or towards and incessantly feeding upon and hungry for? Jobs, relationships, finances, approval of others. We can believe, and I can believe, that incorrectly, if we consume enough of the things we think we need, this perishable bread, whatever it represents, then we'll be happy, or then we'll be satisfied. Then we'll have zoe, a quality of life. The smarter ones of us realise earlier than most of us that that doesn't satisfy. That the thing that is new and shiny today is just a thing that is not longer shiny and new tomorrow. So we need to consider our perishables and we need to seek the imperishable. We need to stop sometimes and think, am I just wanting this because it's more bread or more of whatever? Or I'm investing in things that last beyond the perishable dates on anything that we might want to consume. So here's what Jesus says. Seek the imperishable. Not that any of that stuff is wrong. Jobs, relationships, finances, all that stuff, love it, good. But in and of itself, it is not enough to sustain our soul's health. So seek the imperishable. Zoe life is the one that gives eternal ongoing fulfillment because it comes from a heavenly source. It doesn't come from us. It's not dependent on our earthly and perishable work. Here's what happens next in verse 28, and I'll wrap this up in a moment. When they said to him, well, what shall we do that we may work the works of God? Well, Jesus answered and said to them, well, this is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he sent. So what's going on there? That's a very big font, isn't it? The question the crowd is asking, well, okay, we buy your argument. What do I do now? What do I have to do? What's the project, if you like? Where can I place my effort and my work involved so that I can be right with God, you see? And so they fixate on this word called work. We must find and do the work that God requires, and then God will have favour on us, and we will have these improved and approved lives. They thought that they had to do something tangible and laborious to find favour with God. I know so many people who that's exactly their paradigm through which they relate to God. What can I do for God? Well, here's just an inside run. God doesn't need you to do anything for him. God's got it covered because he's God, right? But out of his wisdom, he knows that we need to live lives of purpose and meaning. So he invites us into the work of God. This is the work of God, that you believe in him who sent. Believe that everyone is welcome, that nobody's perfect and anything's possible. Believe that. But not just believe it, live that. Express that. You know, the word believe translated is 98 times in this gospel. I'm a bit of a Bible nerd about numbers and stuff like that. But it literally means to think to be true or to be persuaded to act. So it's not just about intellectual assent to propositional truth. It's about authentic living our lives. So these people, this crowd, had heard the teachings of Jesus and they'd seen this miracle before their own eyes, yet still they did not believe. And this is what happens in the next verse. So they asked him, "What sign then would you give that we may see it and believe you? What will you do?" What's the next thing, Jesus? What's the next perishable thing that I can invest my life and belief into so that I will believe in you? Now, what have they just seen? They've seen him take a couple of fish and 5 little loaves from a little boy and feed 5,000 plus with 12 baskets laid over. They've just seen that. But their first response is, what's next? See, spiritual hunger doesn't act like physical hunger. I don't know if you've got in the habit. I really like to plan dinner while I'm having lunch. What's next? I've got enough to get to there, What are we having for tea Thursday? Meal plans, all that. It's good. Economically, it's good too, because you know what you're eating, all right? But the thing is, I like to know what's coming next, all right? Physical hunger can be a bit like, we translate that into spiritual hunger as well. What's the next big thing? Church has bought into this, particularly in the last 30 years, where they had to have the next big thing. We had to have weightlifters for Jesus. And then we had to have this, and we had to have shiny things going off and blah, blah, and all the things to this attractive model of church. In other words, we had to top last week with next week. I think that's buying into a perishable view of what the Spirit of God is all about. What's next? What sign will you do? What trick will you perform? More often than not, we have miracles happen all around us and we never see them or acknowledge them. It might appear to be a cold, crisp winter's day in Canberra, but it is a miraculous day of life. And we get to live it. The sun came up the way that God miraculously designed it to come up. The balance of oxygen in the air allows us to take breaths that we need for life, just the way God designed it. Gravity is keeping my feet on the ground and parts of your body where they are because of God's miraculous design. They're all miracles. Sometimes we take for granted that the ordinary are no longer the extraordinary miracles of God, and we see them on a daily basis. But still, we would like to have more. More. Please, sir, can I have some more? Well, let's wrap this story up. Then they said to him, Jesus, they thought, well, we can't really go the philosophical route with you, Jesus, because you've got it covered. Let me remind you of some of our past as people from the Jewish faith. And they said to him, our fathers ate manna in the wilderness, as is written, he gave them bread out of heaven to eat. You may or may not know that story. When the people of Israel travelled from Egypt to the promised land, they wandered around for 40 days and they didn't have anything to eat. And God provided for them manna or bread like from heaven to eat. Truly I say to you, it was not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God, says Jesus, is he who comes down from heaven and gives Zoe, gives life to the world. You notice it says to the world, not just the Baptists, certainly not the Presbyterians. I'm joking. But to the world. To the world. That manna from heaven was not imperishable, it was perishable. It had a one day shelf life, a little longer on the Sabbath, but after the day that it was consumed, it was gone. My Father gives you true bread from heaven. So no longer do people have to live these lives of perishable things, perishing. God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that he who believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. That's when we gather and we celebrate John's life, or they gather in Melbourne, they celebrate Ranjit's life. We know that the perishable has ended, but the imperishable continues on. So then they say to Jesus, Lord, always give us this bread. And Jesus says to them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger. And whoever believes in me shall never thirst. Well, what does that mean for you and me? Well, we become what we eat. A mixture of the perishable and the imperishable, so that we know we can live this Zoe life, this life that Jesus promised to bring. So let me encourage you to do both. Don't starve yourself in either category. I'm obviously practicing that, as you can see. But let's be the kind of people who celebrate the I am, the bread of life. Well, shall we pray, and then we're going to ask God's blessing.
I search the world.